So hi, everyone. My name is Peter Kozik. So many of you know me, and it's going to be great to work with you in EDU 307 Philosophy of Education. I'm really looking forward to it, and welcome to this introduction to the course, where I'll talk a little bit about some of the major issues and things that we're going to be confronting and talking about with one another. And also I'm going to take an opportunity just to talk about some of the structure of the course so that you know how all this is going to be laid out for you in the next 7 weeks. So it's a really highly condensed course, and that means that you really have to stay up with the work. You're all good students, so you recognize the fact that staying up with different assignments and doing what's required week in and week out will be important. And I want to emphasize that, and I know you all know that very well. So let's talk a little bit about what the content of this course is. And really, philosophy in general is asking big questions and big abstract questions, although the answers to some of those abstract questions are not always abstract. Some of them can be very real and very tangible. So what are some of these questions that philosophers ask and that philosophy is about? So one of the kinds of questions that we're going to confront is, what is real and what is reality and how did we come to this place? Is it a reality? Is it a dream somehow? Maybe some of you have read articles recently about the potential for this really being all of this reality being a computer simulation or a hologram. Are there ideas behind what is and what we see as reality? Or is reality as we experience it and as it happens? And is that the thing that's the most important to keep in mind? So it's not an ideal, but it's a reality. And you'll see some of these notions and some of these vocabulary words thrown around in some of the things that we'll be reading over the next week in particular and over the next couple of weeks. So that's metaphysics. And that's an aspect of philosophy when we look at, and when I ask you to look at chapter 2 in the Night Book, some of these things, and really skim through that chapter, some of these things may become a little bit more clear. So metaphysics is, what is real, and how do we come to perceive and get that reality? The perception probably has more to do with what's called epistemology, which is important for us as teachers because it answers or tries to answer the question, well, how do we know this stuff? I mean, is there a model out there for what we're looking at and what we're sensing and seeing that can give us the basis for how we know? Or are we just a blank slate, and do we, through experience and our environments, come to know things in our experiences? So that's that epistemological realm, that epistemological branch of philosophy that we're going to be taking a look at, that has to do with how do we come to know things. And the last branch of philosophy is axiology, which you might know also as ethics. So knowing all these things about reality and how we come to know things, how do we behave in the world? How do we live? And what kinds of principles can we develop for living a life that's authentic and honest based on what we believe? So these ideas of, what is real and how do we come to know what's real, and based on that, how do we behave and how do we live, are these three branches of philosophy. They are the focus of what we'll be talking about in various ways throughout the course. And they really have to do with paradigms and models. Some of you might remember that in 210, we experimented a little bit with the idea of paradigms. We all carry paradigms around. We all have models of what we think is real and what's an authentic life and how we come to know things, even though we might not always question these paradigms and sort of develop them as, or see them as, the assumptions that they really are. So one of the things that might happen for you, and probably will, it's certainly happening for me as I'm reading and thinking about the course, is that paradigms shift and different models come to be important. So when we arm wrestled in 210, it became evident that we all had a model or a paradigm for what arm wrestling was, and it wasn't necessarily the kind of paradigm or model that was going to be most effective and most efficient for us at that moment. So that's why these ideas of philosophy and these questions are important for us as teachers, because they help us teach authentically. They help us teach truly because we know how to communicate what it is that we believe about what's real and how we come to know and how we're supposed to live. So looking at different methods, and we have to distinguish between the methods and the applications that we're using and the philosophies that undergird and support those methods and those applications. So for example, you may believe that lecture is the best way to communicate information. So the teacher, as a knower, communicates information to the person who desires that knowledge. So the knowing is somehow, and the knowing that's communicated is somehow there at an ideal level. And the person is like a sponge or a vessel who takes in this information and then makes it their own. So it's sort of that one-way communication. Or you may believe that discussion is important. So for you, the experience of being in a group, talking with one another and constructing information actively is your method and your application. Well, that has a basis in philosophy, and that has a basis in some of the ideas that we're going to be talking about in the course. So we're going to be looking at the paradigms and models that are at the basis for how we think and how we want to teach. And that's important to know, again, because it makes us more authentic and it helps us understand what we're thinking and what we find most important. So basically, those are the kinds of things and questions that we'll be asking and ideas that we'll be looking at over the course of the next 7 weeks. The structure for the course is largely an inherited structure because I really liked some of the ways in which this course was designed, some of the questions that were asked, and I really appreciated and enjoyed some of the activities that were provided. So I've kept a lot of those. I've sort of tweaked them a little bit. The likelihood is that they're going to stay as they are when you come across them and when you look at them and begin to consider them, because I think they're really well designed, and we're going to sort of see where we end up by going through and walking through the structure of the course. You'll have regular discussion boards. There are 2 posts per week. That's described in the syllabus, which I'd ask you to take a look at after or even before this introduction. But definitely take a look at the syllabus and see how it's constructed and what the assignments are like. So there are discussions. There are regular quizzes on some of the most important ideas and types and schools of philosophy that sort of undergird those applications and theories that are going to come up later on in the course. Excuse me. Sneeze. Okay, thank you. Whoa. Has that ever happened before in a Zoom call? Probably, but you probably mute yourself before you sneeze. So, those quizzes are going to be important. We're going to have a couple of different assignments looking at your philosophy of education and being able to describe your philosophy of education, particularly as it relates to the idea of idealism, which we're going to look at in some detail in week 1 and also talk a little bit more about in week 2. You're also going to be asked to, in a partnering sort of a group presentation and paper, look at how you would construct a school around one of these philosophies and using some of the theories that we talk about. And hopefully that will get you more deeply into thinking about what your particular philosophy of education is all about and being able to communicate that in some way. So that's roughly the structure of the course. It's going to move quickly. You're going to have significant responsibilities week to week. I've left a schedule of assignments also in the introductory portion of this course. So take a look at that as well and sort of keep that in hand so that you know when things are due. I think that's it for now. I'll be talking to you again. There'll be a series of smaller lectures that hopefully will elucidate, kind of educate you and enlighten you. They're certainly going to enlighten me as I develop these ideas. So take a look at those sort of mini lessons, and they're designed to give you a hand with your understanding of some of the ideas that are in the text. Okay, so with that, I'm going to leave you. Thanks a lot. I'm looking forward to taking this journey with you. And if you have any questions, concerns, any ideas for the course or suggestions, by all means, email me and let me know, and we'll be in conversation about them. So thank you so much. I look forward to working with you. Have a great start to the school year, and I'll be talking to you soon. Thanks very much.